Hello, this is just basically checking. I will still do videos, but there's just nothing really to have anything to report. No content as such, really. I'm gonna say it again. My lights look orange due to Samsung phone, and it should be a dark, like blood red. All the lights in the case, with my eyes, like a blood red, and it's meant to be like the whole blood thing dripping down and stuff. Um, but yeah, not on the phone. Um, the next thing which I was considering was going to be the 7800 3D. The 7950 and 7900 I think has just come out. The only downside is that there's not a huge uplift for 4K games. A lot of this is to help things like 1080p and the 1440p games. With 4K, you normally become bottlenecked with your GPU. With the higher end, more stressful games, it's usually the GPU where you start having problems, and the CPU, you can normally keep all of the CPU for a bit longer. It's not as dependent. If you drop down to like 1440p and 1080p, then yeah, the CPU does come into it a lot more, and you can see some massive jumps in FPS and stuff like that. But at 4K, it tends to grind to a halt when it comes to your GPU. So I'm not entirely sure as to whether it's worthwhile going from the 7700X to the 7800 3D, which is probably due in the next month. I've seen some games where in the past, I think it was the 5800 3D, some of the games in 4K did have an uplift, but they seem to be more reliant on one or two cores that were old games, and it seemed to help them quite a bit. But modern games, it's next to nothing. So I'm not entirely sure if it's even worthwhile. Um, as far I can see as well, the 7800 and the 79s, they kind of bring the performance alongside Intel's 13900. From what I can see, anyway, there's a few games where Intel does better, and there's a few games where AMD does better, which is the normal thing. A lot of it down to the architecture and stuff of the games. So yeah, so I'm not entirely sure as if that will actually be my next thing to go ahead with, or I might go for more speakers for my sound system, because at the moment I'm loving that. Soundbar I had was really nice, but it sounded fake. It's hard to explain it, but it didn't sound like natural surround, even though it's like the top end Samsung one. But we've gone for the separates, and the separates are just, it's a whole different story altogether. It is more of a pain in the backside because you've got cables to hide and all that kind of thing, which the wife wasn't appreciative of. But once you get it done, you can hide them really well. So yeah, apart from that, the only other news which I'd seen recently to do with the 4090s was that I believe there's a revision of this one out. It might be that they've got rid of some of the things with the core wine or some of the bits and pieces. Sometimes the changes is next to nothing, sometimes it's quite drastic. But one of the things that sometimes happens is that when they do revisions, the sales are normally slowing down and dropping, and they're trying to cut costs. So what you'll find is that they start using cheaper parts. So they might fix some of the issues, but you might end up with cheaper components in your card as well. The other thing which I've seen MSI do, I think it's just in Japan at the moment, over that way, is the MSI Supreme X Classic. From what I can tell, they're trying to get rid of some of the 3090 Ti coolers. They've put a 3090 Ti cooler on it, and they're asking, I think, $100 or $200 less for doing that. I don't know if that's going to come over to the Western market or whether there's going to be a big demand for it. I'm not sure if it actually brings down on the size as well, because I would say the coolers. I never had the Ti. I had the 3090, but I didn't have the Ti. It could be the cooler's a bit smaller in size wise, so it might help some people with the case. I'm not entirely sure. But yeah, It's pretty boring, I'm afraid. There's nothing exciting or nothing dramatic. The cards still run excellent. Probably just jinxed myself by saying that now. One thing I will say, there's one game coming out in the next couple of days, which I'm really looking forward to. It's only had 3 devs and 1 production team, so production studio, I should say. The Bleak Thief Foundation, I think it's called. It's supposed to be out on the 10th. If you're into Dark Souls and those kind of games like that, I'm going to link the trailer below. I like the aesthetics of it. I like the look of it. I'm not entirely sure how it's going to play. There's some people that have been play testing it and they say it's good, considering how many people have been working on it. But I think if it sells well, they'll probably be able to grab some more people to fine tune it here and there. I think it's going to be about 25-30 hours to finish it. But I just like the look of it. I like the setting and everything. It might not be as high polished as some of the other kind of Dark Soul like kind of games, but I do like the look of it. And so that should be on the 10th for the PC. And there's rumours that it might come out on the console at some point, but I don't care about console. Anyway, that's it for now. Bye.